welcome. I'm Ijoma Onyato. Tonight, National Assembly summons Ministers of Defence and Finance as well as the CBN Governor to explain release of 462 million naira for purchase of helicopters by the executive without legislative approval. Senators call for the sack of Nigeria's security chiefs over continued killings in parts of Nigeria as tension rises in Nasarawa State over reported attacks. Building women's capacity and tackling malaria and other diseases in member countries, including Nigeria, dominate discussions on day 2 of the Commonwealth meeting in London. And French President Emmanuel Macron warns against rising authoritarianism in European Union.
On business news tonight, International Monetary Fund warns countries against impacts of protectionism on global economy and forecasts 3.4% growth for sub-Saharan Africa.
On sports news tonight, Nigeria champions Plateau United crashed out of this year's CAF Confederation Cup after a 4-0 loss at USM Algiers of Algeria in the second leg.
And from Abuja, for the second day, FCT police dispersed protesting members of Islamic movement in Nigeria.
We begin tonight from the National Assembly in Abuja, where the Senate has summoned the Minister of Defence, Mansurudan Ali, CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele, and the Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, to explain the release of $462 million for the purchase of helicopters without appropriation by the National Assembly. They are to appear before the Committee on Appropriation, which has been given a 1-week deadline to present their findings to the Senate.
The National Assembly has always frowned at government agencies spending funds without appropriation by the Parliament. It is, therefore, not surprising that when a federal lawmaker informs the Senate of an alleged case of extra budgetary spending, the upper chamber is swift in demanding for answers.
I have it in good authority, Mr. President, that in March 2018, from the federal account, a whopping sum of $462 million was withdrawn and paid for helicopters to an American firm called Helicopter Techno Fight Helicopters. And this without the approval of the National Assembly. I've been in the Senate, Mr. President, and I know there was no time, there was any request from this Senate for any such withdrawal from the constitutional fund of the Federation. I therefore, Mr. President, as a citizen senator of this place, I want to find out how this thing was done. So I will request and suggest that we invite the CBN Governor, the Minister for Finance, and of course, Minister for Defense, to tell us how this money was withdrawn and paid to an American company, a whopping sum of $462 million, without the approval of this Senate.
I think probably we refer this to the Appropriation Committee to find out. So those in support that this matter be referred to Appropriation Committee to report back in 1 week, say aye. Aye. Those against saying nay. The ayes have it. So the Appropriation Committee should invite the three of them, the Minister of Finance, CBN Governor, and the Minister of Defense.
Mr. Speaker.
The matter is also raised in the House of Representatives by a lawmaker, citing breach of rights and privilege.
We are in the know, Mr. Speaker, that the federal government has spent $460 million in payment to companies in the United States of America for the supply of military equipment without appropriation from this Parliament.
The Speaker of the House isn't holding back his contribution as he refers the matter to the appropriate committees.
Any money withdrawn from any account of the government, not in line with the provision of the Constitution or not subject to appropriation, is as good as money stolen from the system. And if the allegation is true, then it means there's a very grievous allegation. The referral now is to both ethics and privileges and Committee on Finance on that motion, but it's not for investigative purpose because there's no resolution on it.
The House of Representatives did not, however, give the committees a time frame within which to conclude the investigation and report to the House.
Some federal lawmakers in the Senate are calling for the sack of the country's security chiefs. The lawmakers made their views known during a debate on the persistent killings across the country by suspected herdsmen. Senator Sulaiman Adokwe raised the point of order at plenary, informing the Senate of the killing of over 32 people in his constituency, allegedly by herdsmen.
Since the beginning of 2018, barely a week goes by without federal lawmakers in the Senate discussing security challenges in the country. Nigerians have lost count of how many times lawmakers have observed a 1-minute silence to honor people killed in various herdsmen and farmers' clashes and other acts of violence across the country. It's the beginning of another legislative week, and yet again, lawmakers are observing a 1-minute silence for some Nigerians killed recently in Nasarawa State.
It is our prayer that the souls of all those who were killed in Nasarawa and other parts of Nigeria should rest in perfect peace.
Throughout the weekend and up to the moment of speaking, herdsmen have unleashed terrorist mayhem across the southern senatorial district of Nasarawa State, leaving in their wake several dead bodies, numerous wounded persons, and hundreds of thousands of internally displaced persons.
Lawmakers expressed frustration that previous resolutions adopted by the Senate, either calling on President Buhari to find solutions to the unrelenting killings or asking law enforcement agencies to prevent the killings, have not yielded any results.
Maybe the advice of some nationalists to the people to find ways of protecting themselves may not be out of order. Because a government that cannot protect people, it's a very, very sad development.
For me, this government has tried a lot where the previous government failed. So they've done their best, and we can only help our people if we begin to look for ways of promoting peaceful coexistence amongst us as Nigerians.
In a speech reminiscent of that made weeks ago by the Deputy Senate President, the federal lawmaker had this to say.
December 31st, the military struck and they overthrew the civilian government of Shehu Shagari. The tension in Nigeria in '83 is nothing compared to what is happening today.
Some lawmakers want drastic action by President Buhari to address the persistent killings and acts of violence in the country.
I'm saying this, that all the service chiefs and head of security agency should immediately be sacked. There's no two ways about this. I believe these people have lounged enough. I believe they have exhausted all ideas within them.
Two other cases again where two heads of security agencies were quarreling among themselves. The matter was brought to us again to say, let's ask the president to do this. They should be dismissed. They should be removed from office.
The Senate thereafter asked its ad hoc committee on security to investigate the immediate and remote causes of the recent killings in Nasarawa State. But this latest investigation, ordered by the Senate, adds to the growing number of investigations which the Security Ad Hoc Committee is currently looking into, a pointer to the distressing security situation in the country. Linda Akibi, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, there are reports of tension in Nasarawa State following the killing of at least 30 people in different attacks by suspected herdsmen in some villages in the southern district of the state. The state governor, Tanko Al-Makura, has visited the affected areas and he's promised a robust security presence. Although the police is yet to confirm the number of deaths, they've however promised not to relent in efforts to restore calm to the area.
We have also decided to deploy air surveillance with a chopper going from one end of the local government to another to ensure the movement of people and migration of people, and also identify flashpoints where security bases will be deployed to take care of the people there. I want to assure you that we will do all that we can. What is important to us is the safety of life and property.
We still have some pocket of security issues in some part of the state, which the security team are on top of the situation. For now, every inch of these crisis areas are being watched closely with the view to curtail any situation that may arise.
And army authorities in Benue State say troops of the 72 Special Forces Battalion have killed 4 suspected militia herdsmen in Guma local government area. The Director, Army Public Relations, Brigadier General Texas Chukwu, says troops of Operation Mesa had an encounter with about 20 militia herdsmen on Monday at Terguma village during a patrol. 4 of the bandits were reportedly killed while the rest fled. The security forces also recovered 4 AK-47 rifles and 33 rounds of ammunition. This latest encounter with suspected herdsmen is happening after the police in Benue State confirmed that 4 of their officers were killed in an ambush by the armed bandits in Logo local government area. Away from security matters, a former secretary to the federal government, Chief Olufalaye, is asking Nigerians to be wiser with their votes ahead of the 2019 general elections by electing a set of political leaders who will effect the necessary change for socio-economic and political development of the country. The former finance minister was speaking in Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital, after a closed-door meeting which lasted for about 2 hours with the former president Olusegun Obasanjo at his country home. Chief Falaye also took a swipe at the federal government for failing to effectively rise up to provide political leadership in the face of the country's challenges.
I'm sure that most, if not all, right-thinking Nigerians will see the need for all of us to work together to ensure that there's a change, a good change, a beneficial change, a peaceful change, a progressive change in 2019. A change from massive unemployment, which we have now, a change from continual harassment and killing of people, a change from the fear, the Boko Haram, threat and bombings across Nigeria, a change from a situation where farmers are afraid to go to their farms. Primary responsibility of a government is to protect the lives of its citizens. This government is not doing so. President Buhari is my friend. Once upon a time, you will recall, I raised his hand in Adamasinga in Ibadan, asking people to vote for him because he said he would restructure Nigeria. So it's not a personal matter. The truth of the matter is that he has not done well, and I was hoping that he himself will look at the situation as a very honest person and do himself a favor and do us a favor by saying that in the light of what has happened and given the state of his health, he is not going to contest. That's what I thought he would do, but he didn't do so.
And in response, the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, believes Chief Olufalaye has now joined the bandwagon of politicians who want to forcefully remove President Buhari from office. In a telephone interview with Channels Television, Mr. Shehu explains that the Buhari government has fulfilled its campaign promises and lived up to the expectations of Nigerians.
The sad thing for us is that he has also fallen into the category of those opposition politicians who think that by staying on the issue of death, I'm not saying it is not painful or undeserving of attention. If Mr. Falaye and the people like him would, this country loses 300,000 lives to malaria. This is huge. We wish that some of their energy will be devoted to attacking the issue of malaria, of HIV/AIDS, of cancer that are ravaging our own population. But it is politically convenient that we stay on the issue that divides Nigeria ethnically, religiously, thinking that this is a formula for winning elections. We wish them good luck.
In part 2, after the break, we'll take a look at the Commonwealth meeting holding in London, and I'll be joined by the former Permanent Secretary in Nigeria's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Joe Keshi. That's in a moment. Do join us again.